When people say, "She's a good-looking woman," they usually mean, "She used to be a good-looking woman." But when I say that about Margaret, I mean it. She thinks she knows that she's changed, and she has, though less to me than to anybody else. Naturally, I can't speak for the restaurant manager, but I'd put it like this. She sees only what's gone. I see only what's stayed the same. Her hair is no longer halfway down her back or pulled up in a French pleat. Nowadays, it is cut close to her skull and the grey is allowed to show. Those peasanty frocks she used to wear have given way to cardigans and well-cut trousers. Some of the freckles I once loved are now closer to liver spots, but it's still the eyes we look at, isn't it? That's where we found the other person, and find them still. The same eyes that were in the same head when we first met, slept together, married, honeymooned, joint mortgaged, shopped, cooked, and holidayed, loved one another and had a child together. And were the same when we separated. But it's not just the eyes. The bone structure stays the same, as do the instinctive gestures, the many ways of being herself, and her way, even after all this time and distance, of being with me. So what's all this about, Tony? I laughed. We had barely looked at our menus, but I didn't find the question premature. That's what Margaret's like. When you say you're not sure about a second child, do you mean you're not sure about having one with me? Why do you think divorce is about apportioning blame? What are you going to do with the rest of your life now? If you'd really wanted to go on holiday with me, wouldn't it have helped to book some tickets? And what's all this about, Tony? Some people are insecure about their partner's previous lovers, as if they fear them still. Margaret and I were exempt from that. Not that in my case there was exactly a crocodile of ex-girlfriends all lined up. And if she allowed herself to give them nicknames, that was her right, wasn't it? Actually, of all people, it's about Veronica Ford. The fruitcake? I knew she'd say that, so I didn't wince. Is she back in business after all these years? You were well out of that, Tony. I know, I replied. It's possible that when I finally got around to telling Margaret about Veronica, I'd laid it on a bit, made myself sound more of a dupe, and Veronica more unstable than she'd been. But since it was my account that had given rise to the nickname, I couldn't very well object to it. All I could do was not use it myself. I told her the story, what I'd done, how I'd approached things. As I say, something of Margaret had rubbed off on me over the years, which is perhaps why she nodded in agreement or encouragement at various points. Why do you think the fruitcake's mother left you £500? I haven't the slightest idea. And you think the brother was stringing you along? Yes, or at least not being natural with me. But you don't know him at all, do you? I only met him once, it's true. I guess I'm just suspicious of the whole family. And why do you think the mother ended up with the diary? I've no idea. Perhaps Adrian left it to her because he didn't trust the fruitcake. That doesn't make sense. There was a silence. We ate. Then Margaret tapped her knife against my plate. And if the presumably still unmarried Miss Veronica Ford happened to walk into this cafe and sit down at our table, how would the long-divorced Mr. Anthony Webster react? She always puts her finger on it, doesn't she? I don't think I'd be especially pleased to see her. Something in the formality of my tone caused Margaret to smile. Intrigued? Start rolling up your sleeve and taking off your watch? I blushed. You haven't seen a bald man in his 60s blush? Oh, it happens, just as it does to a hairy, spotty 15-year-old. And because it's rarer, it sends the blusher tumbling back to that time when life felt like nothing more than one long sequence of embarrassments. I wish I hadn't told you that. She took a forkful of rocket and tomato salad. Sure there isn't some undoused fire in your breast, Mr. Webster? I'm pretty positive. Well then, unless she gets in touch with you, I'd leave it. Cash the check, take me on a budget holiday, and forget it. $250 each might get us all the way to the Channel Islands. I like it when you tease me, I said, even after all these years. She leant across and patted my hand. It's nice that we're still fond of one another, and it's nice that I know you'll never get around to booking that holiday. Only because I know you don't mean it. She smiled, and for a moment she almost looked enigmatic. But Margaret can't do enigma, that first step to woman of mystery. If she'd wanted me to spend the money on a holiday for two, she'd have said so. Yes, I realize that's exactly what she did say, but anyway. She's stolen my stuff, I said, perhaps a little whinily. How do you know you want it? It's Adrian's diary. He's my friend. He was my friend. It's mine. If your friend had wanted you to have his diary, he could have left it to you 40 years ago and cut out the middleman, or woman. Yes. What do you think's in it? I've no idea. It's just mine. I recognized at that moment another reason for my determination. The diary was evidence. It might be, corroboration. It might disrupt the banal reiterations of memory. It might jumpstart something, though I had no idea what. Well, you can always find out where the fruitcake lives, friends reunited, telephone directory, private detective, go round, ring the doorbell, ask for your stuff. No. Which leaves burglary, she suggested cheerily. You're joking. Then let it go. Unless you have, as they say, issues from your past that you need to confront in order to be able to move on. But that's hardly you, is it, Tony? No, I don't think so, I answered rather carefully, because part of me was wondering if, psychobabble apart, there might not be some truth in it. There was a silence. Our plates were cleared. Margaret didn't have any problem reading me. It's quite touching that you're so stubborn. I suppose it's one way of not losing the plot when we get to our age. I don't think I'd have reacted differently 20 years ago. Possibly not. She made a sign for the bill. But let me tell you a story about Caroline. No, you don't know her. She's a friend from after we separated. She had a husband, 2 small kids and an au pair she wasn't sure about. She didn't have any dreadful suspicions or anything. The girl was polite most of the time, the children didn't complain. It was just that Caroline felt she didn't really know who she was leaving them with. So she asked a friend, a female friend, no, not me, if she had any advice. Go through her stuff, said the friend. What? Well, you're obviously wound up about it. Wait till it's her evening off, have a look through her room, read her letters. That's what I'd do. So the next time the au pair was off, Caroline went through her stuff and found the girl's diary, which she read, and which was full of denunciations like, I'm working for a real cow, and the husband's okay, caught him looking at my bum, but the wife's a silly bitch. And, does she know what she's doing to those poor kids? There was some really, really